In my last video, we covered why it might be beneficial and financially viable for you to purchase a house even at a 7% interest rate. And I promised you we'd go over a similar scenario using an FHA loan and using only $7,000 that a buyer had to bring to closing. I'm Marcie Billen and I'm a real estate agent in the Oklahoma City metro. And in this video, we're talking about how you could bring as little as $7,000 and really even as little as $4,000 to the closing table to purchase a home. And then 5 years later, walk away with $30,000 or more. So let's talk about Michael. Now Michael's fictional. In my last video, we talked about Jessica. I chose Michael because this is a very popular boy's name in the 1990s, which makes sense because I think I went to elementary school with no fewer than 5 Michaels. So Michael has decided to purchase a house because he doesn't want to rent anymore. But he's unsure if he can or not because the interest rate is 7% and he only has $7,000 saved. So I have a story that I've begun telling my clients recently that whenever I was 26 years old, I had the opportunity to purchase a house with an FHA loan. And the houses I was looking at purchasing were in Court, Norman, Oklahoma, meaning like in the middle of Norman, Oklahoma, those old houses, you know the ones, they're really beautiful. I had the chance to purchase one of these homes or more even, and I didn't because I was scared. It felt like a big leap to me, and it was, no doubt, it was. I had reason to be scared. But those houses were, selling for $100,000 at that time, and now 9 years later, those homes are selling for over $200,000. So what I would have needed back then was $3,500 for the down payment or around that, and then around $5,000 for closing costs. And I had that money, and I still didn't pull the trigger. And I kind of regret that choice. This scenario about Michael that I'm relaying to you is actually very close to a scenario that I had with some clients recently, but it's different still because, of course, it's different. So just know that this is not something I made up in my head. This is real. All right, so Michael's max purchase price is $195,000, and he's decided to purchase a home for about $190,000. And he needs the seller to pay some of his closing costs as well. So with this loan that he's getting, it's an FHA, but he's also getting what's called down payment assistance with OHFA. OFA is what we call it. It's Oklahoma based. It's somehow state, maybe federal. I don't know how the program runs. However, it has helped many of my clients purchase a house when they might not have been able to otherwise. Okay, so Michael's interest rate is 7%. Which may sound like a lot after the last few years. So after the seller pays some of his closing costs, they're going to pay $5,000 of his closing costs. Michael has to bring $4,100 to closing. That covers some of his down payment because OFA doesn't pay all of it. And then it also is going to pay some of his closing costs. So he's kind of splitting it with the seller. So the way that he gets that closing cost paid for by the seller is the realtor negotiates that for him. And I happen to be his realtor. So we said in the beginning that Michael has $7,000 saved to buy this house, but it's really important that he doesn't use all of that because he needs reserves. This is one of the OFA rules or one of the FHA rules. What this means is he needs extra money so that they know he can pay his first mortgage payment. That's all it means. What I love about this scenario, he's using this down payment assistance and getting the seller to pay some of the closing costs. What I love about this scenario is that in 5 years, Michael is going to be able to sell this house and to purchase something larger or to purchase something in a different area that maybe was out of reach before. This is how people build wealth. It's one of the major ways. It's not the only way, but it is a good way to do this. So there are 3 different ways Michael's going to make or save money on this house, and that is with home appreciation, the tax deduction on his interest payments, which isn't very much, and then he's also going to make money because he's paying down the principal. So Michael's purchasing a house for $190,000 and he has to bring $4,100 to closing. And then the interest rate he's getting is right around 7%. The $4,100 he's bringing to closing includes lender fees, title fees, it includes prepaid fees, like the cost that he has, and then also some of the down payment. If you need an explanation of closing costs, then you can go check out my video on closing costs. I'm going to link it in the description below for you. So Michael's monthly payment for this house is going to be $1,708 and a little bit of change. Okay, so the point we're talking about right now is appreciation. So real estate appreciates, and I'm using an appreciation rate on this of 4%. meaning 4% each year. So the median home price right now in the Oklahoma City metro is $260,000, but Michael's buying a house for $190,000. This means that in the first year of owning his house, Michael is going to gain around $7,600 just from appreciation. So this is a conservative rate that I'm giving you because in the past 10 years, the average appreciation rate is 5.53%. And the average appreciation rate for the past 2 years is 14.39%. But like I said, for the past 20 years, it's 4%, and I want to be conservative. It is true that this money is not liquid. You have to sit on your assets in order to gain these funds. But during that time of sitting on your assets, Michael gets a place to live. There's also this thing called tax deductions on interest. We covered this a little bit in my last video, and I'm going to stick that right here for you. I'm not going to go over this in depth because Michael is making $50,000 a year, and the savings that he's going to get from tax deductions, because you don't have to pay taxes on the mortgage interest on your payment. So that's being deducted from how much you owe the government. Unfortunately, because Michael's making $50,000, he would typically take the standard deduction for his tax bracket. And if he does an itemized deduction with his tax deductions, it's not going to make that big of a difference. The major differences when this will come into play and you won't take the standard deduction is like if you're self-employed, or you have other deductions and don't want to take the standard deduction. So I would recommend talking to a CPA about this. Okay, so recap. The total amount that Michael needed in order to purchase his house was $7,000. That includes his reserves that, the government wants you to have in order to purchase this house, the savings. And so far, he has gained in the first year $7,600 in appreciation. So also when he's paying on his mortgage, Michael is going to pay down his mortgage principal payment, which means he's paying off his loan. And a lot of times this is the only thing that people think about, but appreciation really kind of outweighs the principal pay down. So in the first year of living in his house and paying his loan off, he's only going to pay off about $1,719 of his loan. And that's because the way the amortization table works means you're paying much less at the very beginning than you are at the end of your principal payment. You're mostly paying interest at the beginning. So when Michael's paying his mortgage payment, a part of that payment is going towards his principal payoff, and that means it's going towards his equity in the home, meaning that is his. So, people like to point out that whenever you're renting, all of that money is going to the landlord and none of that is going towards your home ownership. And that's true. So this is one of the ways that you can get a leg up on building your own wealth is paying down your mortgage. Okay, so we've kind of covered these three items: home appreciation, tax deductions on interest, and then your principal payoff. So Michael in this first year is going to save right around $10,000. So that's making or saving. And it depends on if he's taking that, itemized tax deduction or if he's taking the standard deduction. But with the principal payoff, that was almost $2,000. It was $1,700. And then he has the $7,600 in home appreciation rate. And that's a guesstimate. Lately, it's been a lot more. So we have to take that into consideration as well. So right around $10,000 is what he's making or saving right after he only brought $4,100 to the closing table. Remember, Michael has to sit on his assets. His house is not going to make him money immediately, but he does get a place to live. Okay. Let's talk about time. Let's talk about 5 years down the road, what Michael could get out of this house. So if Michael chooses to live in this house for 5 years, then his appreciation with that conservative appreciation rate of 4% per year, his house is going to be worth around $230,000 at the end of 5 years, after he paid $190,000 for it in the beginning. Over those 5 years, his principal paydown is going to be around $10,000, just a little bit more than that. So that means he's only going to owe a little bit more than $176,000 on the house at the end of 5 years. So then, based off that number and the $230,000, he could walk away from a closing table after he sells his house at the end of 5 years for a little over $36,000. And yes, that does include closing costs and realtor fees. So, despite Michael's 7% interest rate, Do you think it would be a good idea if he purchased the house? Like I said, there are so many other ways to build wealth besides owning real estate. And owning real estate is one of the easiest ways that you can decide to build wealth. There are also many options when it comes to loans, mortgages. If you need some help in that area, if you want to talk to a loan officer who's knowledgeable, please give me a shout. You can email me, you can text me, whatever you need, and I'll send someone over to you. And yeah, we didn't even get to the private mortgage insurance, but that's all included in what I told you. So I'd love to hear your thoughts and your comments about whether you think it's important to buy a house or when that would be a good decision to purchase a house. Leave those comments below, please. Be sure to catch this video next also. It's about closing costs, and I think it'll help you understand what those closing costs are and why they're important. Thanks so much for watching. I will see you next time.